Hello everyone, welcome to watch this episode. Belarusian President Lukashenko has accepted an interview in the past few days. He talked a lot about the conflict between Russia and Europe and the relationship between Russia and Belarus with a lot of information. Now Belarus plays a very delicate role. On the one hand, he is not directly involved in the conflict, but on the other hand, he has very close ties with Russia and has been labeled by the outside world. Then Lukashenko probably wants to take advantage of this situation to realize his own geopolitical approach, so he came up and said that Russia now has almost no allies except Belarus. This is actually true. But according to the relationship between Russia and Belarus, the essence of what Lukashenko said is completely different. It is not difficult for us to see that Russia's biggest challenge is not on the frontal battlefield, but on the battlefield of international politics. Except for individual speculative countries. Or countries that have demands from Russia, no country believes that Russia's so-called special military operations against Ukraine are correct. Well, this can be seen from the results of several votes in the United Nations General Assembly. There are only a few countries that firmly support Russia, and they are very fixed. Then the countries that abstained from voting either used this method to express their neutrality, or they were unwilling to offend Russia. But there are more than 140 countries that directly stated that Russia was wrong. This has reflected Russia's current unprecedented isolation situation, so Lukashenko's implication, we can understand that in the Russian conflict, Russia can't find anyone else to rely on except Belarus. Then Russia may also be well aware of this, and Lukashenko is now specifically emphasizing that he may want to strengthen his position in Belarusian relations. However, Lukashenko then said even though Belarus supports Russia, but it will not be directly involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict unless its own national security is facing a major threat. This shows that Belarus does not want to miss out on the important event of global southern countries persuading Russia and Ukraine to promote peace talks because of supporting Russia. Therefore, Belarus wants to label itself as an ally of Russia on the one hand, but on the other hand, he also wants to maintain a certain degree of foreign policy flexibility. However, Belarus has participated in the Russian conflict in disguise. For the past 2 years, Lukashenko has not denied it, and there is no way to deny it. Last year, the Russian army besieged and attacked Kiev through the border of Belarus, but Kiev was not defeated. Relations between Belarus and the Eastern European country have also deteriorated. It can be said that playing Kiev is a decision that is worthwhile for both Russia and Belarus. But looking at it from another perspective, if Russia really wants Belarus to participate in the war, there is no other way, that is, to officially declare war on Ukraine and force Belarus to make a choice, but doing so is also tantamount to acquiescing to its own failure. Take this step. In the end, Lukashenko also said that although Putin achieved his goals in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, he left a lesson, which is true for both Russia and Belarus. This lesson must be very profound. Originally, Russia planned to make a quick decision, just like the annexation of Crimea back then, but it ended up getting itself into a quagmire. Now Russia's domestic support for the war is also declining. From the outbreak of the war to the present, the Russians have gone through 3 stages, first supporting the conflict, and later the main people may not support the conflict. So as the war has reached this stalemate, the overall mood of the Russians is in this transitional stage from not being against the conflict to being against the conflict. However, Russians generally have a strong sense of nationalism, and most people are willing to sacrifice their personal interests for the benefit of the nation-state, so this transition will be relatively slow, which is why Putin has always insisted on playing the nationalism card during the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The fundamental reason is that the Russians buy into the nationalist faction, but the premise of buying into it is that the Russian army must win and achieve the goal of special military operations. Nationalism supports foreign wars, but it never tolerates losers. Once Putin chooses to play this card, it means that he has no other choice but to win in the conflict, which makes it difficult for Russia to ride a tiger. Take conscription as an example. If conscription continues for the sake of victory, it will harm the vital interests of more people. If conscription fails to obtain positive feedback, it will have a slowing effect on Russia's political stability. However, the priority that Russia needs to consider now may not be to learn the lessons of the Russian conflict, but how to find a step for itself. Because now countries including China are insisting on the Russia-Ukraine peace talks. First of all, we must respect the territorial integrity of Ukraine. This makes Russia very embarrassed. Because Russia wants to leave a buffer zone for itself by taking over the Ukrainian region as a security guarantee. Replacement of. Now the international community does not support Russia's idea. If Russia binds this victory condition to the occupation of the Udon region, it may not end well later. He can only bite the bullet and fight on. There may be new changes in the geopolitical environment. At that time, it will be worth pondering whether Lukashenko will continue to be bound to Russia. That's all for this episode. Thanks for watching. Welcome all netizens to follow, like and comment.